Hello everyone. Welcome to the new session of bacterial disease. So in this session, we are going to study about some of the important bacterial disease that occur in our crops and vegetables, right? So there are bacterial spots, cankers, bacterial galls, bacterial vascular welts, bacterial soft rots, bacterial scabs, and bacterial blight on wheat. So this is specifically that is a blight disease that is caused by bacteria. Okay, and that is seen on the wheat. So these are some of the important diseases that we are going to discuss about in this session. So let us start. So diagnostic symptoms of the bacterial infection. So how can we diagnose that this is a bacterial infection? So on the plants or the crop plants, symptoms are there. We can see some of the symptoms that is able and then we are able to diagnose that this bacterial disease is there, right? So symptoms of the bacterial infection in plants are much like the symptoms in the fungal plant disease. So the fungal plant disease and the bacterial and some of the bacterial symptoms are much alike, right? So they include leaf spots, blights, wilts, scabs, cankers, and soft rot of roots. Storage organs and fruits are also affected, and overgrowth can also be seen. So these are some of the common symptoms that we diagnose in case of bacterial infection. So the first one is bacterial spots. Bacterial spot, the most common symptom of the bacterial disease is the leaf spot. So very commonly we can see leaf spots on the plants, right? In case of bacterial spots. So the spots appear on leaves, blossoms, fruits, and stems. So these spots are not only confined to the leaf only, they are present on blossoms also, fruits, and stem. The spots appear and advance rapidly. The disease is considered a blight. So this is the first symptoms that the leaf get affected. The spots are there, right? And that can be considered as a blight. The disease that considered as a blight. Spots on leaves of the dicotyledonous plants often have a rotten or fleshy odor, are watery soaked, and are initially confined between the leaf veins and will appear angular. In some cases, bacterial ooze will be present, means at the place of spots, some bacterial ooze is there, right? Some bacterial ooze, a liquid that comes out from these spots. So that is called as ooze, bacterial ooze. And this is diagnostic for the bacterial infection. So this bacterial ooze is very, very important to diagnose the bacterial infection. As some of the infections are very common, we cannot diagnose that whether it is from the bacterial infection or the fungal infection. But when there is a bacterial ooze, then this can be considered as bacterial spots. And that is the infection of bacteria. Sometimes a chlorotic halo will surround the bacterial lesions of an infected leaf. So what is a halo? Suppose this is a leaf and this is the infected spot, right? Surrounding this, like this, surrounding this is called the chlorotic halo. Chlorotic halo. What does this mean? It means that at this particular surrounding, there is a loss of chlorophyll, and this is called as chlorotic halo. Spots may coalesce, causing large areas of necrotic tissue. So sometimes there are many like this spots are there. So sometimes they join and form a bigger spots. Okay, and that is the necrotic tissue. Bacterial spots will appear as streaks or stripes on the monocotyledonous plant. So if it is a monocotyledonous plant, so we all know that monocotyledonous plants is in a parallel venation and the leaves are straight, right, like this. So the spots are like this in the case of monocotyledonous plants, like this. Right? So these are the streaks or stripes. The bacterial spots appear in a form of streaks or stripes in the case of monocotyledonous plant. Almost all bacterial leaf spots and the blights are caused by Pseudomonas and Xanthomonas. So these are the two species, or we can say so these are the two genera, that is the Pseudomonas and Xanthomonas, that causes bacterial leaf spot. So here you can see the bacterial leaf spot, right? And this surrounding region now, this yellow, that is called as chlorotic halo. Next is the canker, very, very important. Primarily, the Pseudomonas and Xanthomonas causes the canker disease of a stone fruit, angular leaf spots, and palm fruit trees, and the canker disease of the citrus respectively. So this is one of the very important disease, right? The canker disease of citrus fruit. But it can also be seen in the canker disease of some stone fruits, angular leaf spots, palm fruit trees. So the canker symptoms can appear on the trunk, stem, twigs, and branches. Not only this, it can be seen on fruits also. We will see in the coming slides. Okay, so these are the two genera that causes canker disease. The most conspicuous symptoms of the bacterial canker disease in stone and palm fruit is the development of the canker and gum exudation. So here you can see the gum is coming out. That is called as gummosis. That is gummosis. Right? So this is the bacterial canker disease that occur in stone and palm fruit trees. Canker can be slightly sunken, dark brown, and much longer than broad. So they are quite longer. They are sunken. Sunken means they are depressed, right? Whether it is on the branch or the trunk, right? So they are dark brown in color and much longer than they are broad. Cortical tissues of the canker can be orange brown to dark brown. So they become like the canker tissue that becomes the orange brown or dark brown. Gum is produced in most cankers and some branches and twigs. Cankers that do not produce gums may have sour odor and be soft, sunken, and moist. So sometimes they produce gums, but sometimes they do not produce gums in some of the species, right? So if they are not producing gum, then they are having a sour odor and the tissue become very soft, sunken, and moist. Canker girdle trunk and branches that can result in the leaf stress and eventual dieback of the portion of the tree distal to the canker. So what happened? So this is the branch, okay, and here if branch is like this, so if here this is the affected tissue, so plant drop down. So this is called the dieback of the portion of the tree distal to the canker. So this is the affected area and the distal portion that drops down. So this is one of the symptoms of the canker. Now, let us discuss about this disease, citrus canker. This is a type of canker that can be seen in the citrus plant. Citrus canker is a citrus disease caused by Bacterium Xanthomonas citri Okay, and while not harmful to human, canker significantly affect the vitality of the citrus trees. So sometimes it is so affected that that particular citrus plant can die and causing leaves and fruit to drop prematurely. So you can see this is the infected areas with Xanthomonas citri. In the case of lemon, right? This is a lemon leaf. A fruit infected with the canker is safe to eat but has reduced marketability as a fresh fruit, right? So it is safe because it doesn't harm to a human. So we can consume that infected fruit also. But in the market, there is a reduced value of such fruits. So the bacteria that cause citrus canker enter leaves through stomata or through wounds caused by the weather damage or insects, such as the citrus leaf miner Phylloxnistis citrella, right? So these bacteria enter inside the leaves through the stomata or through the wounds. Citrus canker lesion on the citrus leaves, stems and fruits. We can see here, these are some of the lesions, right? On the fruit. Characteristic lesions are raised and brown and have water-soaked margins and usually have a yellow halo surrounding the lesion. So here these are the lesions and you can see this is the surrounding yellow region. Older lesions appear corky and this is the older lesion, so this appear corky. The canker lesion ooze bacteria when wet, which can infect new growth and be dispersed over the short distances through wind, rain splash and overhead irrigation. So from these lesions, the bacteria ooze out, means bacteria comes out when they are wet, and that can be spread to the new plant, okay, through wind, rain splash and other like insects or even with the help of human. Long distance spread can occur through the flooding and cyclones and human assisted movement of clothes, equipment and infected plant material, including budworm, rootstock seedling and budded trees. So they can be transported to the long places also. They can be dispersed to the long places with the help of human assisted movement and some other infected equipment that we are using from our clothes and also with the help of insects. Plants are infected when the bacteria or the bacterial spores enter wounds and the natural openings on the leaves, growing shoots and fruits. So the plant that are infected with the bacteria, okay, so the bacteria spores enter through the wounds, that is the natural opening, through the wounds or through the stomata. Okay, the bacteria can spread by the bird, insects and humans, particularly when the trees are wet. Wet mean why? Because at that particular time, the bacteria ooze out in the form of liquid, right? The bacteria can survive in the diseased plant tissue as well as in the soil. So it can overwinter in the angular shoots and then become active again the following season, right? So it can present in the shoots, angular shoots or even in the soil, but they are in an inactive form. But when the condition become favorable for their growth in the next season, they again become active. Okay, now the third type is the bacterial galls. The bacterial gall can be produced by the genus Agrobacterium, very, very important, Agrobacterium, and certain species of Orthobacter, Pseudomonas, Rhizobacter, and Rhodococcus. Agrobacterium tumefaciens, Agrobacterium rubi, Agrobacterium vitis alone are responsible for the galls in over 390 plant genera worldwide. So this Agrobacterium is very, very important. And this Agrobacterium tumefaciens has been used in the biotechnology, right? So this is very important in that respect also, because it divide and redivide, and it is very easy to introduce any foreign DNA in this bacterium, through this bacterium, that is Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Okay, so these are some of the bacteria that you should remember that causes bacterial gall diseases. Galls of these genera have been referred to as crown gall, crown knot, root knot, and root gall. So they are different types. Now the galls are different types: crown gall, crown knot, root knot, and root gall. Species of these bacteria are thought to be present in moist agriculture soil. So these bacteria present where? They are present in the soil. Okay, so wound in the host is required for the pathogen to again enter into the host tissue. So how they get enter inside the host tissue, right, in the stem or through the roots? How they get enter? When there is some wound in the host tissue. So these bacteria present in the soil, they easily get enter to the host tissue through that wound. Bacterial galls. Gall tissue is composed of disorganized, randomly proliferating cells that multiply in the intercellular between the cell spaces in the vicinity of the wound. So in the presence of the pathogen, rapid and continuous cell division, hyperplasia and hypertrophy means that is the anomaly structure growth, that is away from the normal structure. This is the two things, hyperplasia and hypertrophy, right? So the pathogen divide rapidly in the tissue and the tissue become distorted. The morphology of the tissue or the organ becomes different. So that is called as hyperplasia and hypertrophy of the plant tissue. So here you can see this gall-like structure. Okay. Gall damage can begin to be deadly. Crown gall first appears as small, whitish, soft, round overgrowth, typically on the plant's crown or at the main root. The color of the galls, that is, galls are actually the tumors that we have seen in the case of cancer in the human, that there is a tumor, right? That is the localized cell divide and form a localized tumor-like structure. So that also occur in the case of plant, that and its name is galls instead of tumor. So they are caused by Agrobacterium tumefaciens and can be orange brown, and as it enlarges, the surface can become convoluted and dark brown. So here you can see this. This is the gall. This is the most often found in the commercial nurseries. Okay, so next disease is the bacterial vascular wilt. Okay, vascular wilt caused by the bacteria primarily affect the herbaceous plants such as vegetables, field crops, ornamentals, and some tropical plants. Okay, so these herbaceous plants, they are primarily affecting the herbaceous plant. These bacteria that causes wilt in the plants. So herbaceous plants such as vegetables, field crops, ornamental crops, and also the tropical plants. The causal pathogen enter, multiplies and moves through the xylem vessels. Very important. So they are present in the conducting tissue, that is in the xylem vessels of the most plant, and interfere with the translocation of nutrients and water by producing gum. So when there is a gum in the vessels, there is a hindrance to translocate the water and the nutrients that are dissolved in it. So that will be affected. And when there is no water to the upper tissue, what will happen? Wilt. So that is why it's called as bacterial vascular wilt. The pathogen will often destroy the parts of the cell wall of the xylem vessel, resulting in the pockets of bacteria, gums, and cellular debris. So the cell wall of the vessels, xylem vessel, get destroyed, right? And that results in the presence of pockets of bacteria. Gums are also there and the cellular debris are also deposited there. So that doesn't allow the water to conduct in the upper tissue. The symptoms of the bacterial wilt disease include wilting and death of the above ground parts of the plant. In some cases, the bacterial ooze seeps out through the stomata or cracks onto the surface of the infected leaves. Usually, this ooze does not occur until the infected plant tissue is dead. So here we can see in the case of tomato, okay, all the plants got wilted because of this particular bacterial vascular wilt. Next is the bacterial soft rot. Primarily, the bacteria that cause soft rot in living plants in tissue include Erwinia species, Pseudomonas species, Bacillus species, and Clostridium species. So there are 4 different species that causes bacterial soft rot in plants. So those are Erwinia species, Pseudomonas species, Bacillus species, and Clostridium species, right? Many soft rots are caused by the non-pathogenic bacteria, which are saprophytes that grow in tissue that has been killed by the pathogenic or environmental causes. Soft rot attack a large number of hosts and are best known for causing disease in the fleshy plant structure both above and below ground. So this soft rot are attacked by the bacteria at the fleshy plant structures. So these fleshy plant structure can be present below the ground, that is root, and above the ground also, that is stem. So these bacteria are almost always present where the susceptible plants under stress and are in the field or in the storage. So the plant that is in the susceptible. The susceptible plant means they get infected very easily, right? So they generally infect to those plants and the plant that are under stress. Soft rot pathogen enter the host through wound. After entering the host tissue, these bacteria produce enzymes that break down the middle lamella of the cell wall, right? And causing separation of the cells at the site of the infection. So when this middle lamella, that is a layer between the cell wall, so that makes when the cell wall is intact, that makes the cell to cell in a joint form. But when the middle lamella get degraded, the cells are free now, right? So there is a separation of the cell and ultimately there is a rot in the plant. The cells die and disintegrate. Rotting tissue becomes watery and soft, and the bacteria will form a slimy, foul-smelling ooze that will ooze out of the infected tissue. So generally they are having a lot of smell that ooze out, and those ooze contain some watery and the soft material that also contain bacteria in that. So the bacteria ooze diagnostic of the soft rot disease. So in case of soft rot disease, this bacterial ooze, presence of this bacterial ooze is very, very important. So here you can see this is the bacterial ooze. Next is the bacterial scabs. Bacterial scab primarily infect the below ground part of the plant such as potatoes, underground stem. Common scab of potato is caused by Streptomyces scabies, which cause localized scaby lesions and on the outer surface of the tuber. So generally they infect the tuber, right? The tuber, the underground stem part of the potato, right? And we can see the scaby lesions at the surface of the tuber. Typically, the corky tissue will form below and around the lesion. So we can see the lesions on the surface, right? Like this. We can see the lesions localized at some places, and the rot pathogen can gain entrance into the host tissue through these lesions. So through these lesions, okay, the bacteria can enter inside the tissue and further degrade the host. Bacterial blight on wheat, very important disease that causes with the help of bacteria in case of wheat. So the bacterial blight infestations only occur after the prolonged period of wet weather. So when the weather is quite wet, right, they are usually localized within the field and therefore do not usually cause widespread damage. So they are basically localized within the field. Okay, so they are not causing this widespread damage to the cropland. This disease is caused by the common bacterium Pseudomonas syringae that persists in the soil and water and is spread by wind-driven rain. So when there is a wind-driven rain and there is a wind also. So what happens? These water splashes which are having a bacteria that can move from one plant to the other, right? The bacteria overwinter on crop residue, seeds, fall, sown cereals and the perennial grasses. So when these bacteria overwinter on crop residue, they are present on the crop residue or the seeds or the fallen sown cereals, they grow on the new crop plants. Spring infection may result from any of these sources and the subsequent infections are spread by splashing rain drops, plants to plant contact and also with the help of insects. So the main thing is that there is a rain splash that spread this particular disease. There is also plant to plant contact and that also can help to spread the disease. Insects are also the agent for the spreading this disease. Bacterial blight develops on the upper leaves of wheat during periods of cool, wet weather. After the plants have reached to the boot stage, the leaf blight is associated with the high relative humidity, wet weather and cool spring temperature. So generally this disease occurs when there is a wet weather, the high relative humidity, when the humidity is more in the air, right? Wet weather and cool spring temperature, that is 15 degrees centigrade to 25 degrees centigrade. Warm, dry weather stops the disease and new emerging leaves may be relatively free of the bacterial infection. But when there is a dry weather, okay, so the new emerging leaves will not have the infection of these bacteria. The initial lesions appear as a small water-soaked spots. The lesion expand and then appear as dry, dead tissue. The spots often join within a few days to form large blotches. So there are small spots, okay, that is showing the blight. And later what happened? They join. These small blights, they join and form a blotch. Big blotch like a structure, right? The entire surface area of an infected leaf may be affected. During wet period, bacterial ooze may develop within these lesions. So sometimes the bacteria ooze out from the lesion and the head does not usually develop these symptoms. Now, what are the control tips? Avoid infesting clean fields by following good production practices. Use seed from the crops that are free from the bacterial disease. So this is the main thing that we can control. We should use the seeds that are free from this bacteria and also make sure that your soil is free from this particular bacteria. Use a crop rotation of 3 or 4 years. Low infected wild grass along the headlands before sowing winter rye, and no chemical control exists for this particular disease, right? So this is all of the bacterial disease. Okay, so we will have some more sessions to study about the fungal diseases, viral diseases and nematode diseases. Till then, thank you very much.